Okay, so we are recording now, and let's pull up the raised hands. Well, I thought I had some raised hands here. Okay. Toby, Paula.
Okay, thank you. Well, I missed who is the guy, but he's really somebody close to my understanding of life, close to earth and health, connected to nature. And I don't know, I will say going back or just keeping it real.
Yes.
Keeping it real for me has been always important. And like you see, I'm on the sun without without knowing that that will be the subject mainly. But it was horrible weather those couple of days, and now we have the sun today. Even though it's quite cold, I'm outside. So the sun is something that I feed from. That's my first food, honestly. Before everything, if I don't have the sun, I feel sick, literally, meaning physically, mentally, all of the above. So the sun for me is food number one, the best one. And then all the food that is coming from the earth. And I start with the animals that we can eat, actually. Like he said, I'm pretty much into all natural meat that we can get, and the whole animal from the nose to the tail. So I completely agree with the guy. And is he connected to farming?
He is. He's a farmer in Arkansas, and he owns a small, like a family farmer's market, and he's working diligently in Arkansas to build a local food system that is, bringing together farmers and a place to sell their food locally so that they don't have to go into the big mass market and, sell, into the meat grinders, if you will.
Right. Well, those people in Arkansas are lucky people.
They are lucky people. He's very inspirational. So I posted his Rumble channel in the chat, and you can also look him up on YouTube under Sowing Prosperity. He has a great interview with Morley, and I think I've done 3 interviews with him. One is a combined interview with Logan and Morley and me together. So there's quite a few. I'll see if I can pull that up also.
Is he doing something about the soil? Is he into the soil?
He has a number of podcasts talking to farmers about the soil. And what they're doing about the soil. And I have talked to him about our Ancient Organics, I'm doing too many things at once. I'm trying to pull up his YouTube channel at the same time. But I have talked to him about our Ancient Organics and Yield and Shield. We sell it on our website for the small gardener, but for larger farmers, we've got the paleo power that you can get through Ancient Organics in larger quantities, like 5 gallons or 10 gallons or a tote of 250 gallons. So
this is from Raul, probably?
Yeah. That's the one that Raul and I worked on. And
right.
And we actually have some new products we're developing there. We're testing the paleo product on pineapples in Hawaii right now. And through the group that we met there, They also asked us to develop a product for the mold toxins that are on the coffee. And so Raul is down there right now meeting with a coffee producer who's going to run a probiotic that we've developed to address the molds that are producing the toxins. So that could be very exciting if that works. You know, there could be a lot more application. I mean, microbes are just so amazing to me.
So, have you thought about contacting to the what was his name? Kennedy.
We do have someone who knows him who is making contact on our behalf, but you know,
there's a lot important to make different rules in this country, like completely different products of how it's producing everything. Of course, it will take time until the soil gets richer again, but if they start at least not using glyphosate and other stuff, and maybe look in your research, because he's JFK is really big on the soil stuff. I think.
Yeah. So our fingers are crossed, but there's a lot going on there right now, and a lot of competing priorities, and people trying to get attention. So I think when the time is right, it will. You know, we'll make.
It's actually very good. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Maha, you have your hand up?
Yes. I was touched by the conversation on the light. And the part that touches me is, first of all, this is not a known fact, but in quantum physics, the principle of least action states that the light goes directly, takes the shortest road to reach a goal. And in that, the light and the principle of least action, which is quantum physics, is considered as having a teleological aspect. In other words, that's the part of science where God exists and cannot be denied, because there is a higher purpose that is expressed by the light. And so I love what is being said at the level of physical health, because that's really what spirit is all about, is to bring the light in and to reveal that light is the most economical. This is what's going to get us the fastest to our healing goal. So I just wanted to chime in my appreciation of that as being universal and touching so many dimensions that it can only make us better people. So
I love that. I actually, it's interesting that you say that, because I was listening to a discussion of quantum physics called Beyond Newton, and it was going through the changes in physics and all of and I decided to have a conversation with ChatGPT in the context of quantum physics and mitochondria and light, and sort of along that path. If you're familiar with the physics experiment of the two slits, where they prove that light is both a particle and a wave, and so they, for people who aren't familiar with the experiment, they have these two slits, and when the light goes through the slit, typically you would think that the slits are the same size, that the wave patterns would be the same. But what happens when the light goes through the slits is the interference pattern of the two lights joins together, and it creates a whole different pattern that is much more powerful. And so I actually, as a part of my, Martha's crazy thinking, I said, well, okay, so let's think about human beings as part of the slit experiment. And if we're open to the light, and the light comes through us, and it comes through all of us together, then we're producing a coherence to a much higher level of
Yes.
energy and wave pattern. And but if we're closed, we don't have that coherence and that light. And we really are an antenna. And if we open our hearts to the light, who knows what
Yes.
what we might
And that's also part of why I'm still in support of Dr. Stevens' work, because blue light is the biggest consumer of glucose. And therefore, an exposure to blue light is what makes us anxious. It's what dysregulates our brain and lessens the coherence of our heart. Because the brain may be the command center, but the heart empowers the brain. And without light, it can do a thing. That's what they feed on. And the glucose allows for the light to be preserved. So I found a way not to gain weight on that diet. And we'll talk about that another time. Would that be okay to call you, Martha?
Oh, yes, that'd be great. I'd love to.
Okay, so I'll do that. And I love being part of this community. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for everything. I love you dearly.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. One of the other things that I was looking at was the prioritization of energy in mitochondria. I'm going to see if I can find that. Because
in the Mercola books, actually, it says the mitochondria, when if you count the whole energy that it produces, is much more than the sun.
Yes, it is it's like a nuclear reaction.
Exactly.
So you
Stronger
are
than the sun one.
Yeah.
I was I was shocked to read this.
What I was looking at, I'm trying to find it, but I have too many chats. Sometimes it's hard to find my okay, mitochondrial fuel prioritization. So there's multiple sources of fuel for the mitochondria. So light is a source, fat is a source, glucose is a source, ketones are a source, and amino acids are a source. And it's my suspicion that light is the primary source of energy, but it's not presented that way in the science. But, you would prioritize it first with light, second with fat, so the beta oxidation, and then third would be glucose, and fourth would be ketones, and then last would be amino acids, because you don't want to be using up amino acids as a fuel source. That's, when you're actually wasting your muscle tissue, and that's a sign of some pretty severe metabolic issues. And it's also, what we see in the later stages of Parkinson's is you start to see wasting, which is, I think, loss of function of the metabolic priorities and, a defaulting to the fuel of last resort, which is amino acids.
Yeah. I love this and I must go. So I will say to be continued, and thank you from my
Tell us next time about your theory about light and how to stay slim.
Yes. Okay, bye, Maha. I don't have any more hands up. If there are any more questions or comments or thoughts about the call, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll wrap up a little bit early.
Yeah, I'm just reading Marcola's book and I'm reconsidering a lot of things. So I'll be really thankful if we can talk about it sometimes.
I'm going to put it on so we have a book in May, which is the book about light.
Circadian.
From Lynn Peoples, but I think in June I'm going to put the Mercola book on the list so we can have a discussion about that, especially since that's the timing for when, all the sweets. And,
exactly.
it was, I think I mentioned on the last call, because I had just come back from my Ayurvedic retreat, that I ate all these carbohydrates the whole time I was there. And my, my blood sugar was just perfect and stable and no problem, no weight gain, no nothing. And
the energy boost and everything. It makes sense to me, especially I'm really afraid that the ketogenic diets are harmful to the muscle.
Well, I think, long term, what you want to do is maintain metabolic flexibility. So you want to have the ability to use all of those fuels as needed. But, ketones, amino acids, and even beta oxidation of fat are all backup systems that are more complex.
They are, but the brain and the red blood cells and the eyes, I mean,
they need glucose. And, I think part of the problem that we have right now is a bit like what Maha was talking about, is we're so overloaded with blue light that it's depleting our glucose and kind of destroying that whole process of how all of those systems work and the priorities. And so, like, getting out in that morning light has made such a huge difference to me. And the fact that, now it's lighter in the evening. So when I get off this call, the sun will still be up and I can go watch the sunset. Chris, it looks like you have your hand up.
Yeah, I hope I have a quick one here. So we're talking amino acids. So I flipped back to my notes on what you were saying about tyrosine, tryptophan, and bacteria. Can you go back through that a little bit?
So tyrosine, tryptophan, and phenylalanine, the 3 aromatic amino acids, you only get those from plants or from the bacteria in your gut.
Okay.
Make them.
Okay.
And they make them
for you get it from the meat.
I'm sorry?
The tryptophan, isn't it from the meat?
Well, yeah, you could get it from that too, but they've gotten it, but the meat has gotten it from the grass, from the plants. Okay. So you'll get it. You can only get it from food. You can't produce it yourself. You don't produce it yourself.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So
it's essential. It's essential.
Right. But those 3 amino acids fluoresce. And I did not know that until a week ago. And I was like, okay, I think that is very important. And it's also a very important issue, I think, with glyphosate, because glyphosate disrupts the production of those 3 amino acids. So then it's disrupting our light. It's stealing the light. And that's how it kills plants. I mean, it destroys the photosynthesis pathway and they turn brown. So, I mean,
makes sense.
What is the connection to tyrosine and tryptophan and phenylalanine, those are all supplements that are often recommended in Parkinson's. What do you think about that?
Well, it's because they're, they probably,
Are missing by
you know,
killing it with
you know, sort of back to the, I think glyphosate is probably implicated in Parkinson's as a contributor. I'm certainly not going to say that's the only problem going on, but that's certainly implicated. And, there were organophosphates. So glyphosate's an organophosphate. There were organophosphates 100 years ago when Parkinson's was first discovered. So, people will go, well, glyphosate wasn't around then. Well, there were other organophosphates. There were other chemicals that have similar mechanisms of action. So, let's just kind of use some logic here. And the gut bacteria disruption, where in Parkinson's, we know they have a disrupted microbiome. And that's where a lot of these amino acids, those 3 amino acids are made by the bacteria in the gut. That's also the B vitamins that are depleted in Parkinson's. They're made by bacteria in the gut. And, these are often the lactobacillus and bifidobacteria that are most sensitive to a lot of these chemicals. And I also learned this week that bifidobacteria also emits something like 5,000 times the amount of light that we do. So,
wow.
We're losing our bifidobacteria, which is low in Parkinson's. It's low in people who did not do well with COVID. You're losing your internal light.
Wow. Such good connections, Martha. My goodness. Thank you. I thought that was such an interesting interview. Really glad to have heard it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Logan has great content. You can find him on Instagram. I posted the YouTube links and his Rumble. So he has, the interview with Mel Gibson it's very interesting, but it's also, Mel can sometimes be a little wacky. And he recently, his house burned down in the fires in California. So he's been under a lot of stress. And so it appears to be under a lot of stress during that interview. But it's a very interesting interview with Petra and Logan, because Petra's a naturopath, and she treats a lot of people with cancer, and she's in LA. And so she has a lot of high profile clients that she's actually kind of saved. And she has some, she's very knowledgeable, and, also came from a background of studying all of this first because of a family member who had cancer, and, just kind of like me, went down the rabbit hole of digging into all the science, and then finally said, gosh, I might as well become a doctor. And so she went to naturopathic school and became a doctor about 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you all for coming, and
thank you.
Enjoyed it. And we will also, post this for replay if you want to watch it again, and summarize the transcript for you. And with that, I will turn off the recording.